Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the May edition of our Catch Up with Keeper webinars. Hope everyone's had a good long weekend, or I guess all the Americans had a good long weekend, and the Canadians or Brits, if any of y'all are here, just had a good regular Monday. But with that, we're going to go ahead and dive on in. In case this is your first ever Catch Up with Keeper webinar series, basically what we're going to do here is we're going to walk through all of the changes and upgrades we've made in the product over the last month. We will also stop and give people time to ask Q&A on the specific new features after we demo them. And then if you have any additional questions at the end, we'll also address those as well. One note on questions, please drop your questions into the Q&A section at the bottom of the screen, and that will make sure that we get to them. Otherwise, if you drop them just into the chat, we may not see them. Okay, first up, we have some updates to Keeper emails. First update is a UI change, especially if you are familiar with Gmail. This may not feel like such a familiar UI, and so you can click this 3 dots here to change to our list view settings, and this should look much more comfortable to what you're used to experiencing. Second is we've also added what we call saved views. And so you can basically create a custom view. You can name it, you can choose what folders it applies to. You can also filter for things like have my clients, like emails from my clients or emails sent by my team, or things that contain tasks, for example, or attachments. And so we'll just pull up one here as well. I have all emails that have linked tasks, and then I can click into one of these as well, and I can see that task that I've linked. And then one more update is you can also see if you compose an email from the practice email, and I'll just send this to me. If you compose that email from the practice email in Keeper, you need to let that take a second to send. You can see who actually sent that in Keeper. So that way your clients will obviously just see that this came from the practice inbox, but you'll actually see which user sent that email. All right, Kate asked if personal inboxes are not enabled, can that section be hidden? I think if personal inboxes are not enabled, you should just see like this is not enabled here up at the top. But I can check back with the product team if that's not what you see. Okay, now we're going to go dive into a client and talk about some of the updates we've made to file review and elsewhere. Okay, first we have some improvements to our saved search reports. And that is we now have the ability to filter on transactions that have attachments or don't have attachments in journal entry, or sorry, in saved search reports. So here I built this one particular one where the type is a journal entry and the property has attachment is false. And if you do that, that is journal entries that don't have attachments. Alternatively, if I had this set to true, it would be journal entries that do have attachments. So this is maybe niche functionality, but hopefully some of you who want to make sure that all of your major transactions, like maybe, for example, transactions over a certain dollar amount in a certain account have source documentation, you can do that here as well. Okay, got one question here, which was, can you show how to make the client details section viewable when you open the demo code client? So that is this section right here. And you can do that in your section manager. So here in your practice settings, you go to section manager, and this will show what you have enabled or disabled. So this client details option here, just make sure that box is checked. Reza asked, will we have access to this recording later? Yes, it goes live onto our YouTube, and will also be emailed out in our weekly email update on Thursday. Okay. All right, well, speaking of client information, we also have another update, and that is to our notes. And that is we now have added note templates. This is especially helpful if you take notes on meetings in Keeper, and you want to have, for example, a meeting template. You can create a template here, and then when you're writing a note for a client, you can just pull in that meeting template here. Your templates for meeting notes, just like everything else in Keeper, are accessible from your templates here. So there's just this new section called Notes where you can create and manage them. All right, a few more updates to the workflow. First is multi-user sign-offs. So it's a big feature we announced last month, but it was only live for closing tasks at the time. I'm excited to announce that multi-user sign-offs are now live on custom tasks as well. So for example, if you wanted to have prepare reviewer sign-offs on a payroll task, you can now easily do that through Keeper. And speaking of sign-offs, one other thing that we added, just a little UI improvement here. If you have a task that is completed and then you revert a sign-off, it will move that task back from done to in progress. So here, if we undo that sign-off, you'll see it moves that back to in progress. And then again, you can't complete a task until all sign-offs have been completed. All right, and then one more smaller workflow improvement, but certainly helpful for those of you who deal with ex-employees, is we improved some qualities of our deleted user experience. So now if you had a task assigned to a user and then you delete that user, you'll still see their user circle here, but you'll also see that this was assigned to someone who is now deleted. This is also something that you can now query for on the task list. So if we're here in our tasks, we can now filter for that deleted, call that user temporary user. So we can now filter for users that are deleted and still have tasks assigned to them, and that we can bulk change assignees, for example. Okay, now next on to some updates in Keeper receipts. First is we added duplicate checking. So now if you upload a receipt and we've already seen that receipt in the ledger or in Keeper receipts, we'll flag that as a duplicate. And so here we can see we've got this receipt here. And if we look, we can see it is pretty much exactly the same. In fact, it is exactly the same as this other receipt as well. So we'll flag that as a duplicate. Yeah, so that is the first update to Keep Receipts. Second is with transaction posting. We moved this to an asynchronous process, which is not super relevant, but what it is super relevant is that means that you are now able to work through your receipts much faster. You don't need to like sit and wait while your transaction processes and posts back to the ledger. So just to give one particular example here, if I posted this transaction, provided I had all the requisite fields enabled, if I posted this transaction, you'll see it instantly goes away. I can immediately start moving on to the next transaction. And then a few seconds later, that transaction will successfully post. Or if there is an error and it fails to post, it will revert and show back up here in your receipt list. Okay, next portal improvement, we're going to talk about e-signatures, in particular KBA e-signatures. There's no actual UI to show here, but one update is we now send notifications if the KBA checks failed. So that way, if you have a customer who is having trouble getting through the KBA experience, you're not going to be just blind to that. You'll see it and you can action on it as appropriate. All right, and of course, last but not least, we have upgraded the client portal to what we call Client Portal 2.0. It is a complete update to the design and look and feel of the client portal experience. So I'll talk about what that looks like, what changed, what didn't change. So first is we added a cleaner, streamlined, more modern look and feel to the portal, so it feels like something your clients are logging into out of the 21st century. All of the functionality is the same here. So we didn't remove any capabilities here. There's still your core transaction, non-transaction questions, your questions for us. We did group all of the actions you need your clients to take into this one action required tile. So now instead of having sort of here are the transaction questions down here and the non-transaction questions below that, all of these are sort of grouped right up here at the top so your client knows what they need to do. This is also where if you send something like an e-signature or an organizer, those will show up in the action required here as well. So as we start to give you the ability to add more and more things to ask for your clients directly here inside the portal, this will be where all of those will live going forward. A few other updates here. We also, this is for tax firms. If you enabled taxes, you now have the ability to use what we call the tax return pizza tracker. And this will let you give your clients a visual overview of the status of the return as it's progressing from getting started all the way to filed. And last but certainly not least, we improved the conversation experience around transaction, non-transaction questions to feel much more like a chat style experience. So this should be something that feels instantly more familiar to your clients than the prior method of asking and answering questions. All right, and one more thing I did want to mention for those of you who are not active in the Facebook, we did have some immediate feedback that we received from people who there were a few particular rough edges around the corner that were not immediately improvements in terms of the new client portal versus the old client portal. So the sort of four main things that bubbled up the surface. These are not the only ones, but these are the four that we are immediately either have addressed or are addressing. Originally, you would see the date and the time that this question was asked in the portal. A lot of folks did not like that, so we have reverted it. So now the client only sees the actual day where you ask this question. They don't see like down to the second. So that way, if you're working late at night, your clients don't see, oh, like they're working late at night. Now it's totally appropriate to ask them questions at any time at all hours. You still see that on your end. So on your side of things, if you ask a question, you'll still see the specific date and timestamp if you have asked that super recently. But yeah, so now your clients can still learn to respect your boundaries. Next is in non-transaction questions. I think this is probably the change that was like most jarring to people was we added this concept of a subject. And so the subject here works just like an email. You have a subject, and then you can ask a question that's independent of that, or it can be the same as the subject. And if you don't have the subject, it's a little harder to see what the topic is on this transaction question at a glance. So we are updating the UI here so that you'll always see the first, if you don't have a subject, you'll always see the first question here. So you'll see this, in this case, it says this question is without a subject. In this case, you would always see, can you please upload the W-9 for Altuve and Sons? And that should make this much, much easier to skim and visually parse to see which questions you asked and what the status is of all of those. So that it's not live yet today. That should be live on Thursday. Next is we are adding back the ability to filter by tags. So if you want to just filter for your statement requests, for example, there will be a little filter icon that should be live in the next 1 to 2 weeks. And then last but not least, this was not actually part of Client Portal 2.0, but it was related. Folks have noticed there is now one more click to upload a particular transaction to QuickBooks. I don't even know. Just add one quickly here. So if your client submitted a document in the portal and you wanted to then upload that to the transaction, it's now one extra click. So you have to hover over QuickBooks Online and then click upload a transaction, as opposed to previously it would just said upload to transaction right here. One thing we are doing to improve that is we're actually adding a setting to let you automatically sync all uploads from your clients directly into QuickBooks. So this should take, instead of this reverting it back to the original amount of clicks that it previously took, this should now take away a lot of clicks and hopefully automate that process even more. And that should be live in the next couple of weeks as well. Okay, we'll pause there to take questions related to the portal. Okay, I see a couple of questions not related to the portal, but I will address them nonetheless. Erica mentioned for keep receipts, is there functionality to change the date format? It previously was month, day, year, and now it's day, month, year. This is actually geo-dependent. So this is August 15th. That is month. 08 is the month. 15 is the day. So that is how it is. So if you're seeing it in the sort of inverse format, that could be a region specific thing. So for, I believe, Canadians, I think it shows up in that format. Write in support and we can help you address this either way. All right, and an anonymous attendee asked, how do you add a sign-off process to custom tasks? So if you're, this is the same for custom tasks and non-custom tasks, but you click this add button, and then there's checklists, which will let you add individual checklists, but what we're looking for here is sign-offs, and that will let you say, here, who do I want to be the first sign-off, and then who I want to be the second sign-off. So in this case, the first sign-off is always defaults to the person to whom the task is assigned. And then we can also say, okay, we're going to have the second signatory be this person. Okay. All right, next we have at least one update to metrics that is going to lay the groundwork for some future updates in future months. And that is you can now, on your visuals, choose the date ranges for these. So previously, all of these visualizations have always been locked at 12 months, but now you can have calendar year to date or fiscal year to date. A line graph is not something that you can do at 1 month because a line graph for 1 month would be a single point. But for other things that are like bar charts, for example, you can do those for 1 month. All right, couple more updates here. Over on into time tracking. Actually, one of the time tracking settings here is we added a new setting that lets you give capacity planning access to standard users so that they can get a better sense of how they are spending their time on a day-to-day, week-to-week, or month-to-month basis. So if you have that enabled, this is what that will look like. So if we go to our timers as a standard user, we will see our time, and we can break that down by client or by work stream. Fortunately, Steve Standard doesn't have much time tracked to his name, so there's nothing that we see here. But it's essentially just a scoped down version of the capacity planning experience that managers and admin users have access to. All right, and last but not least, big update for some folks. We added the ability to add tax clients via Zapier rather than just close clients. So no UI update there as well, but hopefully for those of you who are automation preferential, you can now make those changes directly through Zapier. All right. And with that, those are all of the major updates that we have made in May. So we'll pause here now and give folks the chance to jump into any questions that they have. Okay. John asked, can you tell us more about the tax organizer or provide a resource where we can learn about it? I can do both. Shayna or Lauren, if one of y'all wants to drop the Help Center link in the chat, I will explain how a tax organizer works. So first things first, tax organizers, like everything else in Keeper, can be grounded in a template. We have a 2024 1040 template here as well that you can use, duplicate, copy, or completely disregard. And the basic way to think about a tax organizer is that it is a form that you can have your clients fill out. So we have lots of different transaction types. I won't go through all of them here, but you can have things like short answer, multiple choice. Multi-input question is going to be super relevant. This is where if you have things like dependents, you can have these sort of groups of questions. So I'll show what that looks like. So here, if your clients have, like if you have multiple dependents, for example, you can say, here's what I need for every dependent, and then they can add as many dependents as they have here. And then you can also do things like have them upload files. So for example, if you want to make a request specifically for W-2s, they can upload those here as well. You can individually or bulk apply these directly into clients. And then I will go ahead and do that in demo code just so y'all can see what that looks like. One more thing to note is there's draft and publish organizers. A draft organizer is if you want to like publish this and then go in and tweak or make changes, you can do that. Whereas apply and publish will put it directly into the portal for the client. So now if we go ahead and do that, I'm going to go ahead and refresh the page. And just like I mentioned earlier, those organizers will show up. I guess I already had an organizer here. So all the things you need for your clients to do show up in the single action required section. And so here, if we look at that 2024 organizer, actually, this is the one that we just published, then we can see all of this is the client's experience. And this works on web, this works on mobile web, and this works on the client portal mobile app if you've had your clients install that as well. All right. An anonymous attendee asked, is there a quick way to view all open items, both transaction and non-transaction questions at a glance? Is there a centralized tracker in Keeper or integrate something that shows all requests across all clients? So yeah, the client list is a great place for this. The client portal in particular, I think these columns are not, or these numbers are not always immediately the most intuitive. So there's 3 numbers on the screen here. There's 2, the 4, and then the 0. Or here, I'll show this one. There's 3, the 6, and then the 2. 3 means our clients have answered 3 of the 6 questions that we've asked. And 2 means they have asked us 2 questions in the portal that we have not yet gone in and responded to. So essentially, there's 3 that we can action on that they've responded to, and then there's 2 that we need to action on as well. You can also filter this list here to say, okay, show me clients who've answered any questions, or show me clients who've asked us questions, and that can further parse down this list so you can see what you need to action on. And then within all of these, you can click into any of these cells, and that will show you all of the things that you are either waiting on your clients for, or that they have responded to you or asked you about. And all of these things you can directly answer straight from here without needing to go into the client. An anonymous attendee asks, is there a timeline on conditional organizers? I don't have the specific ETA handy. It is actively in development, so I expect sometime in the next 1 to 2 months, we should have some big updates, both to conditional organizers as well as what we call smart organizers. Okay, a question about, will we ever be able to put items in financial reports, sections that are not Keeper created? For example, we prepare a budget to actuals report in Excel with comments and calculations, and then these have to go into your files. Okay, so this is something that we're actively working on. So hopefully in the next couple of months, we should have a actual better in-software version. But today, the workaround that I'd recommend, so short answer is, the question is, will we ever? The short answer is yes. The slightly longer answer that explains the workaround is if you want to add in a single page or single document for a particular client, what I'd recommend doing today is, instead of publishing this directly to the portal, actually going ahead and printing it. That will download this as a PDF. You can then merge the PDF directly on your screen and then upload it back as a custom report from here. So now it's a little bit more manual work, definitely something that we want to streamline and further optimize, and we will, but today that would be the workaround. Chris asked, are there some features that can help with either detecting duplicate entries or perhaps variances in coding? Yes, there are quite a few. I think I'll mention a couple here briefly. I won't go super in depth because a lot of these are just fairly standard pieces of Keeper functionality. For detecting variances in coding, a couple of reports I would mention. The first is the expense inconsistency report. This is going to look at all of your clients' vendors and transactions and compare how they were coded in the present period to how they were coded in the past. So Zoom, for example, we can see as in office supplies, but historically Zoom is categorized as software. So Keeper will flag those kinds of variances for you. And of course, you can correct them directly inside the product. Another place commonly where you'll look for variances is in what we call the interactive P&L. And so here we'll flag we'll flag income and expense accounts that change significantly from month to month. And so that's obviously a good starting point to find potential errors. Have a question about a feature request for client list movable columns. Dean, I think I actually sent you a message earlier in Canny. Definitely something that we want to support. So yeah. All right. We'll give people here maybe one more minute or so, see if we have any final questions, and then otherwise we will give people some time back in their Tuesdays. Okay, an anonymous attendee asked, is there a way to customize a report to monitor accruals and deferrals? This is like quite a broad question. I will say there are quite a few things, both live and in the works. From a live perspective, I think what I would first mention is like, I would add these as account reconciliation tasks. In fact, that is what we do. So for example, when you're reconciling, say we have prepaid expenses. So when you're reconciling prepaid expenses, for example, you've got your balance here. That's going to tie out to an Excel spreadsheet. And so you can upload that spreadsheet directly to the task. That can serve as the backup there. That's more of a workflow perspective. And so basically what you're doing every month is you download that version of the spreadsheet, make the updates, and then re-upload it back to the account reconciliation task as you're reconciling. So that's the sort of workflow that we recommend for accruals and deferrals today. Also, we'll mention your transactions above a certain dollar amount, just like your capitalization policy, is a great place to monitor for potential transactions that need to get capitalized that may be being directly expensed. And then from there, you can move them to the appropriate balance sheet account accordingly. And then we don't typically talk a ton about new features that we're rolling out before we actually roll them out. But I will say that we do have some interesting, exciting new features coming up shortly that will present a radically different answer to this question. I'll say that much. John asked, can you go more into metrics and reporting, or perhaps provide a resource in this area? Shana and or Lauren, if you'll want to just like drop some resources there. I'm happy to go into depth here, but I think this might be one where a little bit of async resource can go a long way. And then of course, John, if you have specific questions about how to make certain reports, please don't hesitate to drop into our chat and we'd be happy to help. Okay, Dean asked about this second column that is on the right of our account rec screen. That is the timestamped balance column. So if you want to enable this, you go to your practice settings, and then in workflow, you have your account reconciliation timestamped balance column. If you enable this, you will see that column. And then what this does is it timestamps the balance of the account that you're reconciling at the time when you reconcile it, so that if something changes after you reconcile, you can easily get an alert about that, and then that can serve as a jumping off point to go ahead and see what changed. Should probably be default enabled now that I think about it. But an anonymous attendee asked, is there a way to bulk move or copy attachments from recurring non-transaction questions over to transactions instead of doing them one by one? There is not currently a way to do that. I'm also not totally sure how we might do that, seeing as you need to find a particular transaction and move it over there. But no, there's not currently a way to do that at this time. But feel free to write with more details in on a Canny, and we can take a look at it as well. All right. Looks like that is all the questions that we, oh, every time I like draw to a close, people always use that opportunity to ask one last question. Okay. Um, Dean asked, why do the columns on last reconciled transaction sometimes show blank? This has to do with, there's some deep logic in the way the sort of last reconciled transaction, the sort of reconciliation status on transactions works, that we have actually sort of made some improvements on that I think should go live in the next few weeks. But basically, it is only looking at the date of the last reconciled transaction if you reconciled a transaction in that account. So for example, I'm not sure if I have a good example here, but here, for example, if we looked at founder loan, this, because it was reconciled in Brex Cash, is going to show up as reconciled, even if it was not reconciled in founder loan. Okay. And Anonymous Cindy asked, is there a way to see all missing items and incomplete tasks for the close, including due dates and notes in one place? I'm not 100% sure that I'm following what this is asking for here, but the task list is probably my recommendation here. So this will show you any tasks. For example, if we're in DemoCo, this will show you any tasks that are open, including due dates and assignees. So I'm not sure. I think if for this question, I might recommend writing into chat so you can sort of explain a little bit more about your workflow here. All right. Okay. Well, it looks like that is all the questions. There's some here that are like very specific here that I do want to address, but if you want to write me an email that might explain a little bit more out of context, I think that would be more productive than trying to go back and forth with a chat over a webinar. All right. Well, folks, thank you all so much for joining us today on this fine Tuesday morning in May. I hope you all have a good rest of your month, and I look forward to seeing you all again back here next month in June.